The MMA community frequently criticizes Kung Fu for being ineffective, impractical, or even downright fake as a martial art.
The meats. Even worse is like kung fu.
Yeah,
Like,
trapping hands and chi
guys want
sao
to do all
just
this
it
crazy.
doesn't work, man.
Does
We're not fighting
nothing.
Shaolin.
The reason for this dates back to the early days of the UFC, where fights were marketed as if they could prove which martial arts are effective and which ones aren't. At the time, Kung Fu did not see much success, and for this reason, Kung Fu continues to get a bad rep, even decades later. I'm here to tell you that these narratives are false. I'm here to tell you, as an MMA fighter with a background in both Kung Fu and other disciplines, that Kung Fu can be effective and does see success in MMA if you know the right places to look. What the West isn't aware of is the fact that, for the most part, Kung Fu styles don't have any interest in engaging in combat sports competitions like MMA, with one notable exception: Wushu Sanda. Wushu Sanda is a style used by MMA athletes around the world, from regional champions to UFC legends to some of the greatest champions the sport has ever seen.
And when I changed the many things, like Ushu Sanda, I changed wrestling, like
According to the IWUF, the official sanctioning body of the sport, Sanda is a modern unarmed combat sport that developed from traditional wushu techniques and primarily makes use of punching, kicking, throwing, wrestling, and defensive techniques. This means that, unlike most other striking sports, which don't effectively address takedowns, Sanda is a striking sport that familiarizes athletes with shooting and defending takedowns, and therefore allows fighters like Zhang Wei Li or Muslim Salikov to have success at the highest levels of mixed martial arts in the UFC. In MMA, it's well known that striking tactics change in a setting that mixes takedowns to striking. For this reason, Sanda athletes learn how to strike swiftly, move their feet with purpose, and use their takedowns against fighters who don't. Sanda fighters learn how to punish flat-footed fighters with high-speed combinations and frequent leg kicks. Defensively, Sanda is perhaps best known for its high emphasis on catching kicks to set up takedowns. This skill set is so underappreciated within martial arts that many other disciplines never go beyond a basic understanding of kick catching techniques. Only recently have MMA fighters began to utilize many of the same kick catching strategies that Sanda fighters have relied on for decades. And for this reason, it is my personal opinion that no other martial art focuses on the transition between kicking and grappling more than Sanda. For grappling, the wrestling techniques in Sanda were derived from a combination of Chinese battlefield tactics and real-world kung fu death battles. I'll touch more on that second piece in a second, but in the real world, a lot of the takedowns executed in other grappling sports will change completely when you're fighting over concrete as opposed to a soft and forgiving mat. Not to mention that a lot of the positions could leave you vulnerable to multiple opponents. This isn't to say that Sanda is somehow the secret to fighting multiple opponents at the same time. In fact, I'd recommend that you avoid any street altercation to begin with. But if I were in a fight and I had to choose between setting up an Americana from side control or using the grappling techniques that we see in Sanda, I know which one I would choose. These criticisms are not to discount the effectiveness of other grappling styles, but to illustrate how Sanda provides some answers to problems that are not appropriately addressed in any other disciplines, and this includes MMA. In Sanda, we limit the clinch to only 2 seconds so that athletes are forced to learn how to perform takedowns quickly, as opposed to setting up takedowns over the course of several seconds. The longer you're grappling with an opponent, the less time you have to respond to a third-party attack on an actual battlefield or street altercation. In Sanda, we treat our takedowns as if the floor is lava, which is to say that the last thing you want to happen in a street fight is to hit the concrete and break your arm or break your knee doing your penetration steps or break your face because you got taken down, right? We don't want to see that. So for this reason, Sanda develops a style of avoiding the ground even if you're performing takedowns, okay? So we'll throw our opponents while avoiding going to the ground. If a Sanda fighter does go to the ground when performing a takedown, we'll make sure that our opponent always lands first if we can. And if for whatever reason we do happen to land before our opponent, let's say we got taken down, a good Sanda fighter makes sure to use our sacrifice throws in order to accomplish a level of mutually assured destruction. Obviously, I think you guys might be able to see the way this will relate to self-defense. But even for MMA, I feel that these are all valuable skills because it will teach the level of urgency that is needed in order to avoid the bottom position, which is quite frankly why a lot of MMA fighters are not able to make it once they make that transition from their base martial art Two, MMA. A lot of these martial arts don't teach you how to have urgency to avoid bottom position, whereas that's the entire principle of the grappling in Sanda. Another key element of Sanda is the lei tai. A lei tai is a large platform that, to put it simply, is similar to a boxing ring if you removed the ropes. One of your goals in Sanda is to knock your opponent off of it multiple times in the same round, and if you avoid falling off yourself, you're going to instantly win the round. The origin of this is from ancient Chinese death battles. I told you I'd circle back to that one, but essentially, in ancient China, there was a sport called lei tai, wherein fighters would fight on a massive, you guessed it, lei tai over a pit of sharpened spikes. This meant that getting backed up to the edge could cause instantaneous death. In the modern day, obviously MMA is not contested next to a pit of spikes, and quite frankly, neither is Sanda. But the positional awareness to force your opponent to step where you want them to step, because it is a win condition of the sport that you are participating in, to get your opponent to step off the lei tai, is going to be a strong foundation to teaching ring generalship within MMA, where we quite frequently see fighters failing because they are unable to get their back off of the fence. You see what I'm saying here? If you live in the United States, for these reasons, I believe the skills that you learn fighting on the lei tai are going to be directly transferable to the cage, whether it's to set up wall work, or for self-defense, whether it's to transfer over some of that positional awareness to helping you prevent yourself from stepping into oncoming traffic or falling off a staircase or whatever else it would be. It is just a useful tactic to know how to control your footing and step in a strategically advantageous position in any sort of a fight, whether it's a sport or a self-defense situation. And Sanda is, in my opinion, the best martial art to teach this. If you live in the United States and would like to learn more ways to get involved in the sport of Wushu Sanda, consider checking out the USAWKF website and following the USAWKF and USA Sanda on Instagram to stay up to date with the latest Sanda fights, training opportunities, and certification events. Be sure to support the growth of the sport. This has been Jared the Grappler, and thank you for watching this video.